I've always believed in building something for myself, a philosophy that guided me through the creation of Heartfelt Catering Chicago. What began as a modest food truck during my years at Cornell's hotel school has gradually evolved into a full-service luxury catering company, now employing over 50 dedicated professionals and servicing high-end events throughout the greater Chicago area. Each step of this journey is etched in my memory. The sleepless nights perfecting my mother's recipes, the sacrifices that seemed endless at the time, and the relentless determination that pushed me forward. It took nearly a decade of continuous effort, but I've built something I'm truly proud of, something that keeps my mother's culinary legacy alive. This background isn't just a success story. It's essential context for understanding the events that unfolded last weekend at my younger brother David's wedding, which transformed from a celebration into an absolute disaster at the Lake Forest Country Club. Family history. To provide proper context, I should mention that I haven't been on speaking terms with my family for nearly 6 years. My mother passed away when I was 14, leaving a void that my father, Robert, attempted to fill by remarrying within a year to Patricia, Trish, as she insists everyone call her. A former model with social media influence, Trish made it crystal clear from day one that she wanted no reminder of my mother in what she called her new home. My father, Robert Mitchell, now a prominent real estate executive, seemed so eager to move forward that he allowed her to systematically erase every trace of my mother's existence from our lives. The family photos disappeared one by one, replaced by professionally shot portraits featuring Trish's perfectly curated image of our new family. This created an unbearable tension, particularly for me, though my younger brother David, only 10 at the time, became remarkably close to Trish, who showered him with attention and affection. The distance between my father and me started growing then, but the real breaking point arrived during my college years. While I was juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay my way through Cornell's hotel school, my father refused to offer any financial help, claiming I needed to learn responsibility. This from a man who had always preached about family support. Meanwhile, he and Trish fully funded David's education at an expensive private university, with Trish constantly showcasing his achievements on her carefully maintained social media profiles. The contrast in treatment was stark, painful, and impossible to ignore. Growing family divide. The disparity in how we were treated became increasingly impossible to ignore. Trish, perfectly poised in her designer outfits and country club memberships, never missed an opportunity to belittle my efforts while I was building my catering business. Her Instagram stories would frequently feature David's prestigious finance career, while dismissively referring to my growing enterprise as Sarah's little food truck hobby. She'd make these comments during charity galas and social events, where she'd prominently display David's achievements to her social circle while barely acknowledging my presence. After college, my contact with them became minimal. I would make obligatory appearances during major holidays, and during Trish's subtle jabs about my quaint little business venture, while she praised David's every career move in investment banking. The family dynamics had shifted so dramatically that even these brief visits became emotionally exhausting. But the final straw, the moment that severed any remaining connection, came 6 years ago. I discovered through one of Trish's meticulously filtered Instagram posts that my father and she had sold our childhood home. They didn't just sell it, they had already moved into a new luxury lakefront property without even informing me. By the time I frantically drove to our old house, all of my mother's remaining belongings, the precious few things I had desperately wanted to keep, including her handwritten recipe book that inspired my entire career, were gone. When I confronted my father about this, his response was coldly dismissive. "You're being overly emotional, Sarah," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "It's time to move on with your life. Trish has already found the perfect spots for our new family photos in the lake house." That was the moment I decided to cut all contact. The pain of losing my mother's last possessions was compounded by their complete disregard for my feelings. The unexpected invitation. Fast forward to last month, when an elegant cream envelope, addressed in perfect calligraphy, arrived at my corporate office. Inside was a formal invitation to David's wedding at the prestigious Lake Forest Country Club, accompanied by a handwritten note that made my hands tremble slightly as I read it. Dear Sarah, I miss my sister. Despite everything that's happened, despite all the years and hurt between us, you're still my only sister. I want to repair what's broken. Please come. I need you there. David. After a week of internal debate, staring at that note on my desk each morning, I decided to give it a chance. Not for Trish or my father, but for the little brother who once shared secret midnight snacks with me in our mother's kitchen. I even offered to provide the catering at a significant discount, a gesture of goodwill that represented more than just business. David politely declined, mentioning they had already booked another company. The rejection stung more than I wanted to admit, but I understood. Or at least, I thought I did at the time. Wedding day arrival. The Lake Forest Country Club stood as an imposing testament to wealth and social status when I arrived that Saturday afternoon. The meticulously manicured grounds were decorated with thousands of white roses, Trish's signature flower, as she'd made sure everyone knew through her countless social media posts leading up to the wedding. I adjusted my carefully chosen Armani suit, a subtle armor against the scrutiny I knew was coming. My arrival was initially met with what seemed like genuine warmth from David. He rushed over the moment he saw me, his face lighting up with real emotion for the first time in years. Sarah, you came. The hug he gave me felt like the old David, the little brother I used to know before Trish's influence took hold. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to hope. That hope was short-lived. Trish's reaction quickly reminded me why I'd maintained my distance all these years. She spotted me from across the marble-floored reception area, her professionally whitened smile freezing in place. Sarah, she called out, her voice carrying that familiar artificial sweetness as she air-kissed near my cheek. I'm surprised you could get away from your business. She paused deliberately, her eyes tracking over my suit with a practiced evaluation of her modeling days. How interesting that you chose to wear that. The ceremony and reception. The wedding ceremony itself was undeniably beautiful, though it felt more like a social media event than a family celebration. Photographers and videographers seemed to outnumber guests, all carefully orchestrated to capture every moment for Trish's various social platforms. I noticed at least 3 different cameras focusing on her reactions, rather than the bride and groom. However, the seating arrangement at the reception revealed the true family dynamics. While David, my father, Trish, and her extensive social circle occupied the elevated head table, I found myself relegated to a distant corner with distant cousins I barely recognized. My table was so far from the main celebration that I could barely hear the toasts being made. A cousin I hadn't seen in years leaned over and whispered, "At least we have a good view of the exit." The real message became crystal clear when I noticed my table number 17, the furthest from the bridal party. Meanwhile, Trish's former modeling colleagues, whom David had never even met, were seated at tables 1 and 2. The subtle humiliation was clearly intentional, designed to be noticeable without being overtly confrontational. Classic Trish tactics. The confrontation. Things took a sharp downward turn during the reception. My father, who had been steadily working his way through the premium wine selection, approached my isolated table. His face was flushed, his usual executive composure completely abandoned. A few of Trish's social media friends had their phones out, not so subtly recording what was about to unfold. "What the hell are you doing here?" he slurred, loud enough to draw attention from several nearby tables. Do you have any idea how many of my business associates are here? How many of Trisha's influencer friends? You're embarrassing us just by being here. I sat frozen, my appetizer untouched before me, as he continued his tirade. Several guests were now openly staring, and I could see their phones recording the scene. Before I could formulate a response, Trish appeared at his side, her designer gown rustling as she positioned herself perfectly for the cameras. "Oh, darling," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern while she held her phone at the optimal angle for her Instagram Live. "Surely you could have afforded something more appropriate to wear with all your food truck success." She emphasized food truck as if it were a particularly distasteful phrase, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing dismissively at my suit. The sheer audacity of their behavior left me speechless. A few tables away, I caught sight of David, who quickly looked away when our eyes met. His new wife, Emma, was watching the scene with visible discomfort, but like David, she remained silent. The exit and discovery. Rather than create a scene, I decided to leave quietly. There was no point in engaging, especially with my father intoxicated, and Trish clearly hoping to capture dramatic content for her social media followers. As I gathered my purse and stood up, Trish's voice carried across the room. "Leaving so soon? But you'll miss the main course. Though I suppose it might be a bit too sophisticated for your tastes." I was walking toward my car, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my keys, when something caught my attention through the country club's floor-to-ceiling windows. The catering staff was setting up for the main course, and I recognized several familiar faces. These weren't just random catering professionals. They were my employees. My heart nearly stopped as realization dawned. The catering company my business partner had mentioned acquiring last month, the one whose former owner had stayed on as a manager, must have been the one David hired. This entire event, from the elegantly plated appetizers to the upcoming main course, was legally under my company's control. The decisive moment. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and called my operations manager. "Angela, the Mitchell wedding at Lake Forest Country Club. This is one of ours now, isn't it?" "Yes, Ms. Mitchell. We acquired Golden Fork Catering last month. Is everything all right? I know it's your brother's wedding, but we weren't aware you'd be attending." Standing in the parking lot, watching through the windows as my staff prepared the main course, my father's drunken words echoed in my mind. "You're embarrassing us just by being here." Trish's condescending smile as she filmed our interaction for her social media followers burned in my memory. The way they'd hidden me away at a corner table, like some shameful family secret, while Trish's influencer friends enjoyed priority seating. A strange calm settled over me as I made my decision. "Angela, I need you to implement Protocol 17 immediately. Full withdrawal. Document everything. The client has displayed discriminatory behavior toward ownership." "Are you sure?" "That's your brother's wedding." "I'm sure." "Make it professional, quick, and quiet. Full documentation of the withdrawal." The execution. What happened next was a testament to my team's professionalism. Within 15 minutes, I watched from my car as 25 of my employees executed a perfectly choreographed departure. Equipment, food, supplies. Everything was loaded into our branded trucks with military precision. The last thing I saw before driving away was Trish, phone still in hand, her perfect composure finally cracking as she realized what was happening. The venue manager caught up with me just as I was about to leave. I handed her my business card, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Have my father contact my corporate attorney for any payment disputes." The contract they signed includes a clause allowing service termination in cases of hostile or discriminatory behavior toward our staff or ownership. I met her eyes directly. They managed to violate that clause quite spectacularly, and most of it is preserved on Mrs. Mitchell's social media live stream. The immediate aftermath. By sunrise the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Various family members branded me selfish and petty, their texts ranging from mildly disapproving to outright hostile. David sent a lengthy message accusing me of ruining his wedding and proving Trish right about everything. My father, predictably, sent a series of threatening texts about legal action and destroying my business reputation. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and blocked their numbers. But among the angry messages, something unexpected emerged. Wedding guests, people I'd never met, began reaching out with words of support. They'd witnessed my father and Trish's behavior and were appalled. Unexpected support. One of David's colleagues, a senior investment banker who regularly hired my company for corporate events, sent an email that brought tears to my eyes. Ms. Mitchell, I've seen your catering team handle dozens of high-pressure corporate events, but last night was something else. The professionalism your staff showed while executing that withdrawal was remarkable. The way you handled such blatant hostility with quiet dignity spoke volumes about your character and your company's values. I've already recommended heartfelt catering to several colleagues who witnessed the incident. Support came from unexpected quarters. The wedding photographer, who had captured the entire confrontation, reached out privately. I have hundreds of wedding photos showing your father and stepmother's behavior. If you need documentation for any legal proceedings, I'll gladly provide it. No one should be treated that way at their own brother's wedding. Legal developments. Within days, my father's legal team contacted us with predictable demands: full refund, compensation for emotional damages, and threats of a lawsuit that would destroy your little catering company. My lawyers responded with a comprehensive package: security camera footage of my father's drunken tirade, screenshots from Trisha's own social media live stream showing her deliberate humiliation attempts, and witness statements from wedding guests. Our counter offer was simple. We'd refund 50% of their deposit, contingent upon signing both a non-disclosure agreement and a release of claims. The alternative was pursuing legal action for their documented discriminatory behavior, with all the social media evidence Trish had helpfully provided through her own accounts. Their response came surprisingly quickly. They would take the deal. I suspect Trish's careful cultivation of her social media image played a role in their decision. A public legal battle would have been devastating for her carefully curated online presence. The social media war. Even after signing the NDA, Trish couldn't help herself. She began a subtle campaign of harassment, calling my employees to fish for operational information and reaching out to my business partners on LinkedIn with carefully worded messages questioning my professionalism. Each attempt backfired spectacularly, as my loyal team directed all communication to our legal department. Some of her influencer friends tried posting negative reviews about my catering company, but these were quickly countered by an outpouring of support from legitimate clients. The wedding incident had actually increased our bookings, with several guests from David's wedding becoming new clients, impressed by how we handled the situation. Unexpected family developments. The most surprising development came through family channels. Emma, David's new wife and a respected pediatrician at Chicago Children's Hospital, was apparently horrified by what she'd witnessed at her own wedding. According to our cousins, she confronted both David and Trish about their behavior. A successful businesswoman was humiliated at her own brother's wedding, she reportedly told them during a heated family dinner. Do you have any idea how that looked to our guests? To my medical colleagues. Is this really the kind of family we want to be? The confrontation led to their postponing their honeymoon to the Maldives. Emma insisted they needed to address these toxic family dynamics before starting their new life together. It was the first time anyone had openly challenged Trisha's carefully constructed narrative of our family situation. Coffee with David. Yesterday, David asked to meet at a small cafe in Lincoln Park, neutral ground, for what would be our first real conversation in years. He arrived looking different, more like my little brother, and less like Trisha's carefully groomed protege. The designer suit was gone, replaced by casual clothes that reminded me of how he used to dress before Trish entered our lives. "I've been blind," he admitted, staring into his untouched coffee. "Emma made me see how I've enabled their behavior for years." "Did you know Trish convinced Dad to put most of their assets in her name, including partial ownership of my condo?" The revelation didn't surprise me, but David's awareness of it did. He was finally seeing the golden chains that had bound him for so long. "Sarah," he hesitated, twisting his wedding ring nervously. "I'm working with a financial advisor now. Emma and I are looking for a new place, one that's completely ours." And he took a deep breath. "We're planning a small vow renewal ceremony, one where my sister sits at the family table where she belongs. Moving forward, these past few weeks have taught me something important about family, success, and staying true to yourself. My company has grown stronger through this challenge, with several wedding guests becoming loyal clients, impressed by our professional handling of a difficult situation. The old food truck that started it all still sits in front of our corporate office, now more of a mascot than a working vehicle. Sometimes I catch glimpses of Trish driving past it, probably on her way to another social engagement. She always turns her head away, but I know she sees it. As for family, I'm maintaining firm boundaries with Trish and my father, but I'm cautiously optimistic about rebuilding my relationship with David and Emma. We've started having weekly dinners at my place, where I cook from Mom's old recipes that I still remember by heart. Sometimes the family we choose to keep in our lives isn't exactly the one we were born into, but rather the one that chooses to grow with us. David is learning this lesson too, slowly but surely. And somewhere, I think Mom would be proud of how far we've both come.